because of the advances in technology, there really is an opportunity and something we should all be excited about for a renewed and reinvigorated citizen diplomacy. In fact, as someone said, the world is now involved in an ongoing, constant conversation. And new media has truly put the people formerly known as the audience in the driver's seat on a national and global level, shaping content, blogging information, serving as citizen journalists, connecting to one another for information and inspiration. And in fact, for those who were born after 1980, they're known as the digital generation. They're going to be connecting to one another through technology in ways that haven't even been created yet. But what we want to ensure is that while they may have all the techno toys, what are they connecting for? We want to ensure they're connecting about value, to ensure that technology is serving us in creating a generation of potential contributors to democracy, to civil society. And let me just say, I don't know how many of you have heard a program called StoryCorps. It's one of my favorite CPB-funded programs, and it's on NPR. And like many effective initiatives, StoryCorps really began with a very simple idea created by David Isay, based on the concept that every person, no matter their heritage, their background, their achievement, their educational level, they have a story to tell. StoryCorps invites one person to interview another, and at the end of the session, which can run 30, 40, 50 minutes, the person interviewed is given a CD, and another copy is sent to the Library of Congress. So for years to come, the story of average and not so average Americans will be available to friends and family and future generations to know that these people were here and that they mattered. And I truly would like to see StoryCorps travel out the Arab world so we can hear the wonderful stories just waiting to be told and understand that we really have so much in common. And that truly is where education and media come together, benefit of all of us. Thank you.
60% of the Middle East population is under the age, well, it varies, it depends whom you ask, but it's well over 50% are young. In some countries it's as high as 60%. And that's where the future is. And as Stuart mentioned, and as Patricia mentioned, those are the digital generation. I think the impact has been tremendous when we see how the internet is being used. Today there are 42 million Arab internet users, and that only represents 3% of the world online users. That is expected to grow at a phenomenal rate over the next few years. By 2015, that number is expected to reach 15% of the world's online community.
There's no comic book tradition in the Middle East. This is the first indigenous comic book. There was a company called AK in Cairo that was publishing comic books, but everything else, and that's what I think is so wonderful about this project, is that it's indigenous intellectual property that is based and rooted in Islamic history and culture. And that's a sort of novel and new concept when it comes to comic books. And so not only are they introducing this product, but they're trying to create a market for this product at the same time. So they bought the license to Archie and the DC and Marvel Superman, Batman, Hulk, translated them into Arabic. And so they're trying to create a comic book market here where they can introduce the 99, but even selling Archie and Superman, Batman, which have this global franchise that extends that part of the world, through movies and everything. They're still not getting much traction. If you're familiar with Joseph Campbell, his writing style is very much a sort of devotee of Joseph Campbell. This whole notion of archetypes, and now I can show you how Superman relates to how Superman basically is a modern-day prophet. I sort of looked at from the pages of the Bible. So he's basically saying that there are these sort of cultural archetypes that pop culture is built on, This is I get into more detail in the film, and the 99 being an example of that in Islamic films.
I'm also a devotee of Joseph Campbell, and so I immediately started looking into churches, mosques, and synagogues, and temples in Second Life just to see what people were doing. And I was stunned. And so the first week or so that I was in Second Life, which is it's a three-dimensional virtual environment on the computer, for those of you who aren't familiar. So basically you create a character, you control everything about the way that character looks, it represents you in the space, and then you can walk into a three-dimensional replica of something. So people are creating content that other people can inhabit and collaborate on. And so I met a Muslim woman in a Jewish synagogue the first week who told me that her entire life she had been very curious about what went on during prayer services, but felt that she would be either persecuted or make people uncomfortable if she went to check it out. And so I was absolutely fascinated, and so I started a company called Dancing Inc. Productions, and my chief global strategist is Joshua Fouts, who's here today as well, and he's the founding director of the USC Center on Public Diplomacy. We have a very heavy public diplomacy bent at our company. So our primary focus is right along the lines of everything that's been discussed here today. Actually, we know Knife, we're huge fans of his work, and Pat, your comments about the group formerly known as the audience is now creating their own content, and so people from all around the world can inhabit these spaces. And so what we've been doing, Joshua and I, as senior fellows of the Carnegie Council for Ethics and International Affairs for the last 6 months or so, we've been investigating, we're doing a project called Understanding Islam Through Virtual Worlds. And originally the project was going to be a series of events for which we would bring people into the space and get a global audience together. But then we started, I am an investigative reporter, so we started investigating what people were already doing in the space. So instead of bringing the content in, we decided to document what is already happening in the space. And it is astonishing what is going on in these spaces. I mean,
Congressman Ed Markey, whose wife serves on our board, was supposed to be at the Bali Climate Change Conference, which was the summit that the UN held to look at the issue, and he couldn't make it, but he appeared in Bali as a virtual avatar, and his avatar looked exactly like Ed Markey. Ambassador David Abshire, who's a dear friend of all of ours, who's 80, early 80s perhaps, his avatar is a 25-year-old bodybuilder with a lot of hair. So the great thing about the Second Life is if you want to be yourself, you can be yourself. If you want to be somebody else, you can be somebody else.
Online here, we have about 130 million users domestically, which utilize Facebook and MySpace and a few of the other social networking sites. That's only about a 9% growth over last year. The biggest growth internationally is actually in the Middle East and in Africa. They have about 30 million users, according to the most recent Compros report, and that's a 66% growth over last year. And the trajectory, they think, will continue at that rate. It's going to expand more rapidly as there's interconnection with the internet and obviously increasingly usage of global mobile phones that have internet connectivity. Also, while we use Facebook here, there's lots of different types of, as we've talked about, social networking sites overseas, including Vivo in Europe and Orca, which is Google's rapidly growing site in Brazil and India. Of relevance in the Middle East has been, on the upside, in addition to social networking, is blogging. And blogging has really become a news and opinion clearinghouse, as many of you know who live there in the Arab world, allowing freedom of expression and absence of censorship, and with a caveat in those countries that have not shut down certain sites that do blog. Many have hundreds of thousands of regular bloggers on politics, food cooking sites, and what has really been neat about blogging is that it really does cut across different demographics in age and gender and education, and really has allowed an interconnectivity and affinity groups that is heretofore seen and allowed a lot of user creativity. And I think probably in that you allow for more an increasing of democratic processes and to learn skills to accept differing views, even if you don't agree with them.